Let's head over to River State now. And it's another chapter, really, or another page in this almost unending back and forth. It's the tale of two courts giving, well, what some have described as different rulings. The tale of two electoral commissions at the federal and the state level, given conflicting statements as well. It's also the tale of two political heavyweights in that sense, who seem to be at loggerheads. So today we dig deeper. The state government is counting down to Saturday's local government election, but judging from the court at the federal level, which says INEC should not release the voter register, the DSS, the police should not provide protection, then you wonder, will that election hold or not? At the end of the day, it's the people of River State that are the receiving end, because governance naturally will suffer as a result of all of this. We're joined on the program by two gentlemen, Mr. Achi William Wobodo, who's a legal practitioner and public policy analyst, a partner head dispute resolution practice at Edward and William Law Firm, and Mr. Richard Wokocha, who is associate professor of public law, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, River State University, Port Harcourt. Both men join us virtually. You're welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Wokocha. What is a clear explanation, or at least understanding, of what is going on? And it's as simple as this for the Rivers people. Are we going to vote on Saturday or not? I know that there is a federal high court ruling and there's a court in River State's ruling. There's what INEC said, saying that we've not given RSEC the voter register. There's what RSEC said, saying, no, we got this voter register since November last year. But the question is quite simple. Will that election hold this Saturday or not, from where you sit?
Well, I think from a legal perspective that the election will hold. The responsibility to hold the election under the law is that of the River State Independent Electoral Commission. And what they are required to do to host the election or to hold the election, let's say, has been done. Yes, there are two conflicting decisions, rather rulings about release and non-release of documents. If RSEC said we applied for this and received it months ago, they have received it. Anyone who is not sure that what they received is the proper one, or that they have received it, can challenge that later if he has the competence. But the institution which is required to act with independence has said we received the documents required, the voters register, months before now. So I think I see nothing, legally speaking, that stops the conduct of the election. The orders made by the Federal High Court seek to restrain INEC from releasing a document which has already been released. And in law, when an injunctive order is made over a completed act, it does not have effect. A child that has been born, and the court cannot order that the child should go back into the mother's womb. A completed building is completed. A court cannot order that it should not be roofed when it's completed. What the court can do is other questions concerning the validity of how it is built or ownership of the place.
So that's
so I think I do not see anything in the law that prevents it from holding.
All right, so that's one side to that judgment by Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court in Abuja. The other part of it, and I'll go to other guests soon, but I'll also stay with you, Mr. Wokocha. The other part of it is that Justice Lifu also restrained the Inspector General of Police and the Department of State Service from providing security for the said election. So if there's no security, because election is not just voting, there's a security bit. If there's no security, there can't be an election. Talk more of a credible election, right? So if they're not going to provide security, will that election still hold? Will the River State government then employ, I don't know, vigilantes and everyday people to protect that election if police and DSS are not going to be involved? Mr. Wokocha, that's still for you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were talking to my colleague.
No, that's still for you. I'll go to him soon.
Yeah. Now the non-provision of security and all that.
All right. Well, clearly the connection is frozen there. But Mr. Wokocha, we'll come back to you, right? But let me get Mr. William Wobodo to comment on this one and get his opening comments. Mr. William Wobodo, please go ahead. He has said that election will go ahead on Saturday. Do you share that same sentiment, seeing the conflicting court judgments from Federal and Rivers High Court, the conflicting statement from RSEC and INEC? Do you see that election happening?
Well, the best point to start this conversation is that election is an event. Election is a process. That if you take it from that context, the question would be, has RISEC commenced the process of holding this election in accordance with the law? Let me take it from what the other guest has spoken. And sorry.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Are we there?
Yeah, we're with you.
Yes. Yeah, let me take it from what the other guest has spoken to say that RISEC received the voters register since November last year. Taking that as true for the purpose of this conversation, has that voters register been displayed anywhere in the units of the local government where election is to be held? This morning, when I realized I was supposed to be here, I put a call again to my own polling unit. No single voter register has been posted anywhere, and no single voter register has been pasted anywhere in all the 4,000 polling units of Rivers State. So who are the voters who will be voting on that day? We do not know who the voters are. Now, let's come to the issue of the judgments. With all due respect to the State High Court, I don't think that if the court, his lordship, who delivered the judgment, had been put, all the facts, all the laws were put before him, he would not have come to that conclusion. The first is that it is the election registration of voters law that regulates how voters are registered in Nigeria. That's one. And the second part of it is that the other part of the law which provides for that registration is in Part 3 of the Electoral Act. And these records or these laws make provision that voter registration is a continuum. It's a continuous process. Now, the last time voter registration was done was in 2022, before the general election, precisely August 2022, before the general election took place. Since then till now, several citizens have turned 18 years. Those persons, they intend to disenfranchise. Now, the issue of voting and voting rights is a fundamental human right that is covered by Article 13, Sub 1 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It says that every citizen of a country is entitled to participate freely in the government of his country. Now, for all those who have been born since August 2022 till today, they don't want them to participate in the election. So how is that election supposed to hold? RISEC has a responsibility to display the voters register. For me, as a voter in Rivers State, to verify whether my name is on the voters register, and if it is not, I raise my complaint. To verify whether there are some dead persons in my polling unit whom, if they are allowed to capture their votes, will make me lose the election. Those things have not been done. And you want to do an election. You just want on the 5th of October, you come before the people and you announce there's no basis for us to question the validity of the election. Things are not done that way. The judgment of the Federal High Court did not say, as they want to make it look, that stopped election completely. It says, INEC should not release the voter register until the procedure for the election has been duly complied with. And that's what every rational member of the state should be gunning for. RISEC should do the proper thing, display voters register for voters to know who are those who are voting, register those, allow INEC to register those who have not been registered, who have turned 18, who have turned the minimum age of. In fact, the right to vote is a universal suffrage right. So I don't think that it's out of place if Federal High Court says do not hold the election until all the laws are complied with.
Now, I'm thinking about so many implications to the statements issued, by the different parties, particularly in the suit. For instance, and I'd like you to educate us here, Mr. Nwobodo, while we wait for Mr. Nwokocha to return, to educate us particularly on the operations of RCEC in this case, and maybe state independent electoral commissions, and the national electoral umpire. Isn't there supposed to be some form of esprit de corps, between those bodies, because they perform the same functions to conduct elections? So why are there, contradicting statements between both parties, where INEC is saying that it hasn't released the voters register to RCEC, and RCEC saying it obtained it a long time ago? Isn't that sort of confusing? Which are state independent electoral bodies, under the national electoral body? Are they subordinate to INEC? That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I'd like you to speak to this contradicting judgments, the one from the Federal High Court Abuja and the State High Court in Rivers State, emanating from two courts of coordinate jurisdiction. I'd like you to speak to that as well.
Okay, so let me start from the beginning, the first question. I do not think that there's any conflict between what INEC has issued and what RISEC has issued. RISEC says they have received voters register. First, the onus is on them to establish that they've received voters register. The first thing they should have done if they received voters register, more than 30 days before the date of the election, they would have displayed the alleged voter register which they received at the polling units. And then citizens would have said, oh, they've already received voters register. Up to today, as I speak with you, no voter register is displayed anywhere in any polling unit. So it leaves us with the conclusion that what INEC says that we have not released voter register to RISEC is the truth. Now, secondly, RISEC is not, legally speaking, subordinate to INEC. But you see, Nigeria runs a federation, and that federation leaves the issue of voter register, because it's a national security issue, with the federal agency, which is INEC. So it's only INEC that keeps the voter register. By the Election Registration Act, the custodian of the voter register is INEC. So INEC releases it to each state to conduct election. They release those that pertain to that state to conduct the election. Now, if you look at, now coming back to the second question, where people say the judgments are conflicting. For me, I've read both judgments and I do not see anything conflicting. All I see is that the first judgment from the Rivers State High Court says, made legal pronouncements, acceptable legal pronouncements, that by virtue of the judgment of the Supreme Court, which INEC and RISEC is supposed to be bound by, that they are entitled to conduct election. That's correct. Federal High Court also made legal pronouncements that are valid. The legal pronouncement that Federal High Court did not say RISEC does not have power to conduct election. No, it never said so. It said for you to conduct election, RISEC, you must comply with the process, the law, according to the prescriptions of the law. The Supreme Court would also not give a judgment to say INEC can conduct election at the whims and caprices of those who are conducting the election. No, it must be in accordance with the law. And I've asked here, and I'm going to ask it again. RISEC wants to conduct election in Rivers State. Up 3 days to the date of the election, nobody knows who are those who are supposed to be voting in that election. Is that process in compliance with the Rivers State Electoral Act? The answer is no. So the Federal High Court judgment is only enforcing the provisions of the Rivers State High Court laws and the other laws of the Federation to say, RISEC, yes, you have a right to conduct election, but you must conduct it in accordance with the law. That includes publishing the names of those who are supposed to be who are to vote, giving the statutory notices at the appropriate time, and even allowing INEC to register those who are eligible to vote within the context and specification of the law. So I do not see it. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just land on that thought there so that we can go to Mr.
Yeah,
Nwankwocha.
so I do not see anyhow the judgment of the Federal High Court could be said to be in conflict with any law or the powers of RISEC. They are saying conduct the election in accordance with the law.
Well, but the point is not that it's in conflict with the powers of RCEC. The point is that it's in conflict with the judgment given by another court of competent jurisdiction, and that's where the curiosity of the layman arises.
I said before, the first court says RISEC has a power to conduct election. That is not in dispute. RISEC say that law says, Supreme Court says you should conduct election. That is not also in dispute. Now see the Federal High Court judgment as an amplification or a qualification. Yes, you have the right to conduct the election. Yes, the Supreme Court has said you should conduct the election, but conduct the election in accordance with law. And that includes allowing people to know who are those who should vote in the election.
All right. I'd like to scrutinize that against the backdrop of the specific rulings of the judgment delivered by the Federal High Court. But let's go to Mr. Nwankwocha, who is back with us now. And I'm sure that you have, Mr. Nwankwocha, quite a number of things to say about what your colleague has said. Go ahead, Mr. Nwankwocha.
Well, the law has remained the law and has not changed. My learned friend has rightly set out what both courts said. And if you look at the analysis, nobody is saying don't conduct election. Everybody is saying conduct election, or rather the Federal High Court is saying conduct election in accordance with the rules. So how do we know whether the election has been conducted in accordance with the rules? That is going to be a product of an audit after the election has been conducted. Election is not a game. It's not a sports festival. It's a constitutive responsibility of the state that enables people of the local governments constitutionally elect their leadership as and at when prescribed by the law. That said, those who must conduct it have a responsibility.
Oh dear, Mr. Nwankwocha, we keep getting this network glitch from your side, and it's important to get your thoughts
It's a public responsibility to conduct it. Right. And so, participate, you are letting go of your constitutional or public responsibility. But as to the question, conduct in accordance with the law, and the institution that is conducting the research says we have done everything according to the law. I think the only question that can be raised is after the election. A person who feels that the law has not been complied with will challenge it and say, ABC in the law we are not complied with. But you can't say, don't do what is a statutory duty.
So a few things he raised, I'd like you to respond to Mr. Nwankwocha, displaying the voter register so people can see and be aware, know whether their names are on it, if there's any dead voter, or, how elections are meant to, be conducted. So has that been done? Because that's also meant to be one of the, prerequisites before conducting elections. That's Mr. Nwankwocha.
Okay.
Has that been done?
Oh, good. Those are things expected to be done by INEC, which possesses the register. And then at every election, there are going to be people whose name are on the register who are dead. Because even the day before the election, people will die. And there will even be people who qualify to vote the day before the election. So the fact that all of that exists does not invalidate the process.
No, I'm saying that pardon me, the question which he raised is that the voter register, has it been displayed? Yes or no? I'm not talking about whether or not those names, has it been displayed?
Right now, I'm not in position to know because I have not gone to check any such thing. But I have had the press responsible to do that, and they say they are ready for the elections.
So,
which is why I am saying, where they claim to be ready, the law does not permit you to stop the conduct of an election. Where they claim to be ready, questions that can be raised will be questions showing that their claim was wrong. And that they did not act within the law, but not want to stop them.
All right, so let me ask you this. As a legal practitioner, as a voter, I imagine you're registered to vote, as a concerned Nigerian, yes. All of this put together, would it be right for an election to go ahead without displaying the voter's register?
That's exactly what I'm saying, that if there is any step that is supposed to be taken and that step is not taken, that would be a reason to set aside the election. But to say election should not hold, because I believe that there is a thing that has not been done, is to hold the entire nation to ransom, to hold the Federal Republic of Nigeria to ransom. Because the law in question are laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, whether it's done by the National Assembly.
Okay, so basically you're saying that if the register... All right. I know it's a quite tricky one. I imagine the weather is also contributing to this on your part. But what you're saying is if the voter register is not displayed, then that is not right. And you believe that election will be fraught with issues. The second part of this, Mr. Wokocha, and I really hope that we can get you to respond to this, was a question I asked earlier on about security. Okay, we'll try and get Mr. Wokocha back, but let me take this back to... Okay, Mr. Wokocha, just a moment. Let's try to be sure that your connection is impeccable for now, but in the meantime, I'll go back to Mr. William Wobodo. You've heard the point he made. At least do you agree with him on that? It looks like both of you may just agree on that point.
Which point, please?
The point about displaying the voter register.
No. He's totally wrong. He's totally wrong. Knowing who is entitled to vote and the number of persons who are to vote is a fundamental aspect of an election.
But he says that if you have issues with it, you should wait till the election is done before you challenge it.
Okay, so let me now correct the impression. Now, the Federal High Court has directed INEC, which is the custodian of the voter register, not to release the voter register until the process or the procedure, the notices and all that have been complied with. So you cannot say the voter register, the Federal High Court has already punctuated the act by making a directive to the RISEC or to INEC not to release the voters register. And once they do not have the voters register, then there will be no basis for the election. There's no election conducted. They couldn't have conducted election without the voters register. So to make the argument that after the election, you can go and challenge the process, there was no process at all. Because as it stands today, and I thank the Federal High Court for bringing such a timely, making such a timely intervention. The INEC has not released voters register. So whatever they do does not even exist in the eyes of the law. So the question of wait until we finish the illegality and then you go and contest it, it's not proper, and it's not even right for this country and our democracy at this stage. You have identified an issue which you know is illegal, and you are just saying to people, complete the illegality and then somebody should go to court and challenge it. That's not proper. I think that the proper thing to be done is for RISEC. If they believe in neutrality as an independent organ of the state, they should conduct the election in accordance with the law. Why would a law agency, a constitutional body that is vested with the constitutional authority to do something, knowingly do something that is illegal, and then turn around to tell you to go to the court? And then you pass the buck to the court, and when the court decides otherwise, you will now put the blame on the judges. That's wrong. That's wrong. INEC, RISEC should go and comply with the law. And INEC has already started complying with the orders of the Federal High Court by saying we have not released the voter register to anybody. So you cannot even conduct an election. Least of all, calling anybody to come to go and challenge the court, challenge the matter after the court. That's improper.
All right, Mr. Nwobodo, let's look critically at INEC's conduct now, or position, as the case may be. And I wonder if you've obtained a copy of the court judgment, which I have right here. And I want to read from the first paragraph of the judge's ruling. And this is what it says. It says, the first defendant, that is INEC, who withdrew all its defenses in this suit, is not entitled to release that part of the National Register of Voters containing a register of voters in Rivers State to the second defendant, and that would be RCEC. Now, my question is, and it'll help us understand, that why would INEC, that is supposed to be a neutral party in this suit, withdraw its defenses? And to add to that, Mr. Nwobodo, did the judge exhaust all of the possibilities of requirements for all parties to tender evidence before going ahead to make a ruling that the voters' register should not be released and the election should not be conducted until all the requirements are met? Isn't this hurried in the light of the circumstances, particularly with regards to the background of the politics in Rivers State that led us here?
Okay, so let me start with the part where you said whether INEC was wrong to have withdrawn their defense, where the Supreme Court has even made pronouncements to the effect that INEC is apolitical and that INEC should not delve into the phrase of contentious disputes. INEC, as the voters register, it is the custodian of the voters register. INEC would have seen, not their counsel, I'm not making defenses for them, but INEC would have seen that, look, we have not complied with this law. These processes have not been complied with. So there's no basis going to defend and argue what you know is legally incorrect. That is unprofessional and unethical for INEC to begin to argue when they know, obviously, from the provisions of the Election Registration Voters Act and even the Electoral Act, which establishes them, that they have not complied with the law. Then secondly, when we talk about whether the court made a hasty judgment or it took into account everything. Now, the court does not go outside of the processes presented before it. And it is the plaintiff who determines how the mode of commencement of an action. If a plaintiff decides to bring an action via an originating summons, it means that the action will be determined based on documentary affidavit evidence. And if he brings it by way of writ of summons, it means that the suit will be determined based on, may be determined, based on oral evidence and documentary evidence. Now the plaintiff brought the action based on originating summons. So the court had to look at the affidavit evidence. Now, when all the processes have been adopted, there's nothing again for the court to do. The court does not need to call witnesses. The court will determine the case based on the affidavit before it.
Okay, we have Mr. Wokocha back. Yes. Pardon me, we have Mr. Wokocha back. Thankfully, his network is good now. Mr. Wokocha, well, he has said that you can allow illegality to go on and then now wait for it to end before you take action. And that's what the Federal High Court in Abuja has done, in his words. That's on the one hand, so it disagrees with you. But it seems you agree that if the voter register is not displayed, then that election is fraught with issues. But earlier on, I asked you about the security bit, because the Federal High Court also asked that security, at least from the police and the DSS, should not be provided, restraining the IGP and the DSS. So where does that leave the election security bit, which is very important as well? So two hurdles now.
Well, I think we are experiencing a new trend in the country where the courts are largely becoming institutions for playing politics. The courts were supposed to be levelers that levels everybody and brings everybody under the control of the law, but that does not seem to be the role it's playing at the moment. There is no relationship between giving an instruction that conduct what you have power to conduct, but ensure that you comply with the law. There is no relationship between that and asking institutions, public institutions, that should provide security, even if people are going on a protest, not to talk of a statutory function like election, ordering them not to participate. If an institution that is required by law to act with independence says we are ready, we have done what should be done, other institutions who do not have statutory duty in respect of declaring whether or not they are ready says another thing, who under the law has the responsibility to perform that function? If there are two claims, one says everything is done, everything is ready, another says no, we don't believe everything is ready, or somebody says I don't believe they have done everything they need to do, the state should stop, grant a halt, and wait until the one who is not responsible to the state is satisfied. If this year did not say that they had done everything they were supposed to do, I will agree with you. But the people with responsibility to the Nigerian state now is RISIEC with respect to the particular election we are talking about. And well, if they say we have received what we are required to receive from INEC, arguing that INEC is saying this or saying that, does not remove the responsibility from them to comply with the law.
But the court has the responsibility to interpret the law, and that is what happens. The court judgment that asked RCEC to conduct this election based on the voter register for 2023 was agreed with, right? You agreed with it, perhaps because it favored you. Now, another court says that, hold off, don't hold this election. INEC do not give them the voters register. Police do not provide protection for what the court appears to be saying is an illegal act. So do you expect the state to protect an illegality or provide protection for what it deems an illegality? Is that what you expect in this case?
The court that is speaking.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wokocha.
The court that is speaking is required by law, section 84 of 15, orders primary over. So if one is started, because the man who is the institution,
okay, Mr. Wokocha, this has always been a challenge with your connection. If you can hear me, I'd like you to start your response again so we can get a full value of what you're saying, because we lost you in some part. So please start your response again, Mr. Wokocha. Oh dear, it's always been challenging. I think
okay,
maybe.
I hope you can hear me now.
Oh yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
There is an impulse.
No, we can't hear you. Maybe this is just. Mr. Wokocha, it's okay. It's just so we don't flog this too much. Perhaps we'll have this conversation at a time when your connection is better. But it's important to just lay these issues bare, so the people of Rivers State know where they stand. This is Thursday. All we have is Friday before that election. So it's important to clear the air. And I expect that the political actors will also come out and say, you know what, because of the good of Rivers State, this is what will happen. We don't want violence. We don't want any deaths. I want the business of governance to continue. So this is what should be done. I expect that the politicians and the leaders will stand up and do what is right. But we have to anchor at this point. Clearly not the end to this conversation, but we have to thank you so much, Mr. Richard Wokocha, Associate Professor of Public Law, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, Rivers State University, as well as Mr. Ache William Wubodo, Legal Practitioner and Public Policy Analyst, Partner Head, Dispute Resolution Practice at Edward and William Law Firm. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I wish this dispute is resolved. I hope you guys can bring to bear your expertise. Thank you once again. We'll take a moment on the show. When we return, we'll talk health. Health is wealth. But what is the health or state of health of children and the young ones in the country? That is where we turn our attention to in a moment. Stay with us.